What happened to Madeleine McCann? The 3-year-old disappeared from her bed during a family vacation in Portugal. She's never been seen again. Over the years, there have been many theories and suspects surrounding her disappearance, but no definitive answer has ever been found. Now, the German police say they've solved this disturbing mystery. Let me catch you up. I'm Chris. Thanks for watching True Crime Recaps. Investigators from 3 countries have been searching for Maddie with no luck since she vanished in 2007. And they came within a month of the case being closed in Portugal. There's a 15-year statute of limitations on a case like this under Portuguese law. But a month before time ran out, they accused a suspect, Christian Brueckner, a 45-year-old German citizen who was in the area when Maddie went missing. He's been on his home country's radar for years, but the Portuguese police has always balked at naming him a suspect. But now that they have, the clock on the statute of limitations has stopped. Before I recap the case for you, let me introduce you to Christian Brueckner. His name has been popping up since the beginning. He's been lurking around the Algarve region of Portugal since the early 2000s. In May of 2007, when Maddie was taken, he was living with a former girlfriend just a few miles away. Apparently, he stayed with this woman off and on, and when he wasn't staying with her, he was living in an old van. Over the years, he's built up a horrific criminal resume, including burglaries, drug trafficking, and rape, and those are only the crimes he's been arrested for. In 2005, he brutally raped a 72-year-old American woman in her house, not far away from the resort where Maddie disappeared. His victim told the police he'd filmed the attack. That's what eventually got him caught. A year later, a drinking buddy of his stole his video camera while he was serving time for a robbery charge and turned it into the cops. Another associate of his claims Christian told him he kidnapped and murdered Madeleine McCann. And police say they can link him to other sexual assaults on young girls that started out as attempted robberies. His name has been popping up as a suspect in some sick crimes for years. Listen to this. In 1994, when he was a teenager, he was arrested for molesting a little girl in a playground in Bavaria. When he got out, he moved to Portugal until Maddie's disappearance in 2007. In 2013, a former girlfriend said he sexually abused her 5-year-old daughter. A few years later, German police questioned him about the disappearance of 5-year-old Inga Gericke. She vanished in 2015, almost exactly 8 years after Maddie did. And in much the same way, she was camping with her family when she disappeared. In 2016, police searched an abandoned property where he used to live. It just happened to be very near the place Inga vanished. And they found a horrible treasure hidden in the dirt. USB drives with more than 8,000 images of child porn was buried underneath the body of his dog. His RV was still there too. Inside, they found little girls' bathing suits and kids' clothing, but nothing to link him to Inga or Maddie. So, they dug a little deeper into his past. Literally. In July 2020, they searched a small plot of land where he'd been squatting in his van between 2007 and 2008. At the time he was there, a small shed-like structure was on the property. When he left, it was destroyed, and underneath it was a hidden cellar. 15 feet underground, filled with God knows what kind of twisted playthings. The police haven't said what exactly they found, but they were seen bringing up a child's toy bucket. And he's also a suspect in the rape of an Irish tour guide and the rape and murder of Tristan Burbach, a 13-year-old boy. The list goes on and on. Clearly, Christian is a real trash can of a human. But did he take Maddie? Let me tell you what happened to her. On April 28, 2007, the McCanns checked into apartment 5A at the Ocean Club Resort in Praia da Luz, Portugal, for a week-long vacation with 7 of their friends. The McCann family was made up of Kate and Jerry, both doctors, their 2-year-old twins, and Madeleine. She was 3, almost 4. The family spent their days playing tennis, lounging by the pool, and visiting with their friends. Every night, around the same time, the group would put their kids to bed, then the adults would meet for dinner at their favorite tapas restaurant in the resort. They always reserved the same table, so they were outside with a better view of the area of the resort where the rooms were. across the pool area and through some trees. From door to door, it was about 84 yards away, a little less than the length of an American football field. The Ocean Club had a nighttime babysitting service, but they didn't use it. They didn't want to leave the kids with strangers. Instead, the McCanns and their friends worked out a system. Every 30 minutes, they'd all go check on their own kids. But on May 3rd, when Kate checked on her 3 children, Maddie was gone. Now, before we get into the investigation, let me break down exactly what happened that night before the alarm was raised. At around 6:30, one of their friends, David Payne, stopped by apartment 5A to look in on Kate and the kids. His family was in 5H. Now, how long he stayed and why he was there has been debated, but here's why it's important. David told the police he saw all 3 of the kids in the apartment at that time. Now, if that's true, then that makes him the last person outside of her family to actually see Madeleine alive. Around 7 p.m., Maddie and the twins were put to bed. Kate said she always made sure the windows, shutters, and curtains were closed in their room. By 8:30, she and Jerry met their friends for dinner at the tapas restaurant as usual. In his statement, Jerry said their seats were facing the apartment and he could see one of the entrances pretty clearly. In her statement, Kate said they weren't facing the apartment. Around 8:55, Matthew Oldfield passed the McCann kids' bedroom windows on his way back from his apartment. And he said he sort of leaned close to the window to try and hear if the kids were up and talking or crying. He didn't hear anything, and he's sure the windows and shutters were all closed. He told Jerry and Kate that he'd passed by and hadn't heard anything unusual. But 10 minutes later, at 9:05, Jerry got up to go check on the kids anyway. In his earliest statements, he said he thought he unlocked the front door to enter, but in later statements, he remembered that both the front and sliding glass door onto the veranda were unlocked. He says he saw the twins and Madeleine asleep, he used the bathroom, and left again. At 9:15, Jane Tanner walked past apartment 5A to check on her kids in 5D. That's when she said she saw a man walking away from the apartment complex carrying what looked like a sleeping blonde child wearing pajamas. Now, this same man carrying a child was seen 45 minutes later by a family on vacation from Ireland. Quick side note here. After Maddie went missing, a local man told police he thought that man might have been him. He'd picked up his 2-year-old daughter from a daycare near the resort around that time. But some crime experts say the man in the sketch should not be written off as that innocent local. It might actually have been the kidnapper. Stick with me. At the same time Jane noticed this man carrying a child, she also saw Jerry heading back to the restaurant. He was talking to a man she didn't recognize. And Jerry told police he was someone he knew from his tennis lessons, but he didn't see Jane. At 9:30 p.m., Matthew Oldfield checked on his kids in apartment 5B. Since it's right next door, he offered to look in on the McCann kids too. He let himself into the apartment through the unlocked sliding glass door, and this is what he told the police the day after Maddie disappeared. The door to the kids' room was half open. There was enough light in the bedroom for me to see the twins in their cots. I couldn't see the bed occupied by Madeleine, but as it was all quiet, I deduced that she was sleeping. I could see some light inside, not from an artificial source inside the apartment, but perhaps something coming from outside through the bedroom window. He returned to the tapas place and assured Kate and Jerry that everything was fine. At 10 o'clock, Kate went to check on the kids. That's when she found Maddie's bed empty and the window open. The doors were all unlocked. She left the twins there sleeping and ran back to the restaurant to tell the group Madeleine was missing. When they all came back to the apartment, the search for Maddie was chaotic, but strangely, the twins didn't wake up, not even when they were carried to another apartment while investigators arrived. The first official suspect was Robert Murat. He was a British man living in Portugal who volunteered to work with the investigation as a translator. When he got a little too enthusiastic about helping the police, they got suspicious. And at the time, the house he was living in was only 150 yards away from the Ocean Club. But after an extensive investigation, no evidence was found connecting him to Maddie's disappearance. When it comes to Christian Brueckner, German police say phone data put him near the Ocean Club on May 3rd. After that night, he wasn't seen around the area anymore, and one theory says he transported her from Portugal to Germany in his Jaguar. One day after Maddie went missing, he allegedly re-registered the car under a new name in Germany. And you know what they say. In true crime, there are no coincidences. Although he says that's exactly what it is, just a coincidence. And in a 5-page letter from his German prison cell, he claims he had nothing to do with her disappearance. He also says he has an alibi. He claimed he was with a woman at the time, but that might not be his former girlfriend. She's been questioned multiple times, and she says she doesn't remember him actually showing up at her house that night. He was listed as a person of interest at the time Maddie went missing, but the Portuguese police couldn't find him, so he dropped off their radar until 2013 when they questioned him and presumably cleared him. Meanwhile, they were focusing their investigation a little closer to home. So the information you've heard so far and what you're about to hear next comes from witness interviews in the Portuguese police discovery documents. Now, over the years, some of it has been debated or contradicted by the witnesses themselves. But this is some of what made them take a long, hard look at Kate and Jerry McCann. They became suspects after police discovered what they called discrepancies in their statements. For example, on May 4th, Kate told police the door to the children's bedroom was completely open and so was the window when she discovered her daughter was missing. She said she was certain she'd closed them before they'd left, like she always did. But police noticed that in the statement she gave in September, she said she'd never touched the windows. But her fingerprints were found on the inside of the window. But 3 partial unidentified prints were found on the outside shutter. In that same statement in September, she added that before they left for dinner, they made sure to put the medicine they had with them inside their bedroom closet or the dresser so the kids couldn't accidentally get into it. The meds they had included children's Calpol in case of fevers or headaches, but she insisted that they never gave it to them while they were there. At the time, Calpol was made with a sedative-like ingredient. It wasn't unusual for English parents to dose their kids to get them to sleep. And this was a key point for Portuguese investigators. With no signs of forced entry and the twins' drug-like sleep, the police started to develop a theory about an accidental Calpol overdose. To shut that down, Kate and Jerry offered samples of the twins' hair for drug testing. The results showed they were drug-free, and yet even Kate and Jerry believed the kids might have been sedated that night, maybe even chloroformed by Maddie's kidnapper. On May 8th, 5 days later, they brought in the dogs. They picked up Maddie's scent and followed her trail down the street for almost 100 yards, but lost it in a nearby parking lot. A British tourist told the police he'd seen a man in his 30s staring into McCann's apartment on May 2nd or 3rd. He also remembered seeing an old van parked on the street in front of the resort. A second man came forward with a similar story about a thin, scruffy man in his 30s, but the police didn't release those sketches for more than a year because they were so focused on Kate and Jerry. By August, 3 months after she went missing, the British police brought over dogs of their own. Their names were Eddie and Keela. Eddie was a cadaver dog trained to smell if a dead body had been in the area, and Keela smelled for blood. Between the two of them, they helped solve more than over 200 cases over the years. Here's what happened when they checked out apartment 5A. Eddie, the cadaver dog, was mainly interested in the parents' bedroom closet and an area behind the sofa. He also allegedly showed interest in Maddie's stuffed animal and Kate's clothes. Keela allegedly detected blood behind the sofa. The dogs also took a run through the apartments where the McCann's friends were staying at the resort, but they didn't hit on anything there. Then police took the dogs to a parking garage. The only car they allegedly showed interest in was the McCann's rental car, which they picked up 3 weeks after Maddie disappeared. Eddie alerted on the car's trunk and the door. Keela found something of interest in the trunk. Police sent what they thought was blood to have the DNA tested, and it was inconclusive, although at the time, the forensic service insisted that 17 out of 19 elements matched Maddie's DNA. But the sample was too small to accurately confirm it was her. However, All of that combined was enough for the Portuguese police to officially name Kate and Jerry as suspects on September 7, 2007. But it wasn't enough to arrest or charge them with a crime, and 2 days later, the McCanns left Portugal and went home to England. A year went by, but a few problems from the original investigation made it hard to move the case forward. At first, it was treated like a missing child, like Maddie had wandered away, versus a criminal case. So there were no roadblocks or alerts issued to Spanish border guards about a possible child abduction. For the same reason, the family's apartment wasn't treated like a crime scene until roughly 12 hours after she disappeared. And by that time, any forensic evidence was buried under the remnants of dozens of people walking through it, including ash from investigators' cigarettes. Eventually, in July 2008, the case was closed. Fast forward to 2022, and they've come back to one of the first unofficial suspects on the list, Christian Brueckner. So, what do they have on him now that they didn't have then? Well, that's been the topic of a lot of speculation, and for the most part, the police are staying quiet. But it's been said that they might have found fibers from Maddie's pink pajamas in the van he was using in Portugal back then. That's one of those pieces of evidence they haven't confirmed, but also empathetically have not denied. According to a German documentary team, Christian worked odd jobs at and around the resort where Maddie was taken, and his old partners in crime have said he was known to rob hotel rooms and holiday rentals. One of his cronies speculated that he might have broken in, found the kids, and reacted violently if Maddie woke up and saw him. His former girlfriend said they talked about the disappearance after it happened, and he speculated to her that Maddie might have been taken by the underworld, and if she was, she would never be seen again. Or to put it another way, one theory is that Maddie was a kidnap to order, meaning she was stolen and sold to some sicko that wanted a little girl like her. In that scenario, the allegation is that Christian could have been the middleman. But the German police insist he's the sicko that wanted her for himself, then killed her. They just need to prove it, and they say they can. In fact, they want to question him about a few other missing children cases over the years. They've hinted that they can connect him with at least one or more of those cases, which might prove to crack open this one. Talking to a Portuguese news station, he said they have new facts and evidence that he's the one who took Maddie, although they've been quiet about the type of evidence they have. As for the McCann family, well, until they find her body, they're not giving up hope that their daughter is still alive somewhere. And this is definitely one of those cases that keeps you up at night, wondering what happened in that room in 2007. What do you think?